Good evening. I'd like to call the North Augusta City Council study session for Monday, March the 9th, 2026 to order. It's good to see everybody. Thank you for being here. And at this time, we're going to turn it over to our city administrator, Mr. Jim Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as is our standard practice for our citizens, we'll go through a council agenda review for the things the council will be considering next week. Then we'll go through department details. And lastly, we go through focus items. And the item we'll have here will be talking about an annexation policy. And so Tommy Paradise will be the main presenter on that, and James Sutton and I will be in support. But with that, I'll go ahead and move into the agenda review. So we'll start with old business. Items number 7 and 8 are linked. Item 7 under Planning and Development Ordinance number 2026-06 to approve the revised general development plan of the approximately 195.39 acre Hammond's Ferry plan development located on the west side of Georgia Avenue between North Augusta Greenway and the Savannah River. Revisions relating solely to Phase B of such revised general development plan. First reading, that's to remove from the table. So you have to consider, and you as the council have to vote first to remove that from the table in order to even consider item number 8. And item number 8 would be correction. Number 7 is you have to first reading, you have to remove from the table, and then you can actually debate that particular item. So I'll go through what that looks like there. And so this is a reminder for the council. There had been some discussion in previous study sessions about a zoning action that involved the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission had heard an argument or a request from the city for the change of use of parcel D as in Delta, which is down there in front of the stadium, catty corner from the front. The original use in the PD that is currently approved is for residential and a small amount of retail. And so the request that was brought to the Planning Commission was the change of use for commercial, ostensibly for a cyber infrastructure project. That item was recommended by the Planning Commission, I believe, on a 4-to-1 vote. But ultimately they make a recommendation in this matter, but they don't make a decision, and they bring it to City Council for final consideration. So ultimately what you have before you is the zoning action, if you will, or the change to the PD. And if that passes at the next council meeting, you'd have a second reading of that same ordinance, and then at that next council meeting after that, so after the masters, you would have that to consider. You would also have a resolution to consider for the purchase of parcels B and D. So these are all linked. So ultimately, if a motion from the council to pass a resolution fails for the PD, then there'll be no subsequent resolution for purchase. It'll just, because those two items are linked. And so ultimately, the first thing you'll have to consider is this option here for the change to the PD itself. And Tommy is also prepared to talk about the mechanics of what that looks like if required. So I'll pause for questions because I know that's going to be something that's been discussed and tabled and then potentially brought off the table next week.
Jim, I don't really have any questions on that, but just, I guess, really clarification for the public. Just this is determining that we would move forward with purchasing the property. Specifically, what's going on there from size, scope, all of that is determined at a later date. So this is simply this one is particularly just simply to rezone it to public so that we can make subsequent decisions regarding what happens next.
This is a PD change. So this particular ordinance that the city council would consider next week does not involve the purchase, does not talk about or does not consider cost or scope or anything along those lines, but one is going to have to predate the other. And so ultimately this is a council action to change the usage of parcel D as in Delta there, which is the last parcel that is up for consideration. So parcel I, as a reminder, is currently with the planning department for the 11 townhomes or however many townhomes it is. I believe it's 11. Tommy has to look that up. What is it? Sorry, 22 for parcel I. All right, I did get that right. Parcel 11, parcel I would be 11 townhomes. So that is currently with the planning department, and so really parcel D is the last of the Riverside Village parcels that's in consideration for either private development or a potential public development.
Thanks, Jim.
Mr. Clifford, is there a designation for zoning that would allow both of those, like a mixed use, or is it's either office space or?
What was brought to the Planning Commission, Councilman Fielak, was for ultimately for the city usage for commercial space. What it would do, though, is remove the residential component. So there would be no residential allowances on that piece of property.
So my question is there a designation that would allow both of those? It's one or the other, correct?
I would say that what is brought to the Planning Commission so far was not, that was not considered by the Planning Commission. The action that the city staff brought to the Planning Commission was for the use of this cyber infrastructure. So if the city council had different guidance, that would have to go as a separate action to the Planning Commission, is my understanding.
Just want to make this real clear for public consumption so everybody understands. Because I think there are people definitely on both sides of the fence here. If we don't make this change in zoning ordinance, then we're definitely looking at this parcel most likely becoming townhomes at some point, correct?
I would say that's a fair statement, Councilman.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next item under old business, item number 8, under planning and development, ordinance number 2026-07, amending table 5.1, use table related to telecommunication tower and antenna of the North Augusta Development Code, Article 5 of the Chapter 18 of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina Code of Ordinances, second reading. So this is an item that the City Council has previously considered and voted on once. This is the second reading. And again, this is not about a specific project, although there is one in mind, but this would allow for towers to be placed on public property. The project that this would most likely affect is a project with Verizon to put a tower somewhere in the vicinity of the Riverview Park Activity Center, based on some of the cell phone analysis of some of the neighborhoods in and around there, specifically Hammond Hills, that there's some gaps and seams in the cell phone coverage. So ultimately, this would allow for that, for the City Council to consider at a future date. But just so you all know, this would allow us to get our table correct in that we tell people that are coming to the city that want to put a telecommunications device in or a tower that their first course of action is to put it on public property, but that doesn't necessarily say so in the ordinance to be able to allow to do that. So this would marry up our ordinances and our policies a little more cleanly. And again, you'll have another opportunity as the council to consider an actual contract or action with a telecommunications company in the future. Any questions on that? Hearing none, we'll move under new business. Under administration resolution number 2026-17, approving a fourth reprioritized project and funding list for capital project sales tax 4, CPSD 4. I believe you have a hard copy Excel document. And so what I took was what I believe was the council guidance from the offsite, and I married that up with projects that have either already been completed or projects that will not be completed. And so starting at the updated priority list, where you had headquarters development with the public safety headquarters. Again, that project is largely complete, does not require additional funding. You already had prioritized road reconstruction as number 2, based on the Bluff Avenue connector, which essentially the Greenway connector is. And then number 3 being the the Georgia Avenue traffic calming. And then based on the council exercise you all went through at the offsite, based on the big 4 and then the additional 8 projects, I've listed those priorities in those orders. And then at the very bottom, you'll see that there are projects that are starting from the bottom working up are projects that we don't believe that are going to need funding at all. So the New Savannah Bluff Lock and Dam, because the Department of Energy settlement money is not going to require additional funding out of CPSD 4. The wastewater interceptor pipe project is very specifically named and actually says in the voter referendum the 3 interceptor lines that are to be rehabilitated, and that project has already been done with ARPA. So those are projects that could not be accomplished in CPSD 4 or should not be accomplished in CPSD 4. So that's why you'll see those at the bottom of the list. So the intention is if the city council approves this reprioritization, you're going to immediately start getting projects that are listed in this, and Tom Zeser would have the very first project, which I'll talk about next in item number 10, But if that resolution passes, we'll have a number of council actions to consider for CPSD4 based on the guidance that we received at the offsite.
So number ones have been completed, so 2, 3, 4, and 5 are the big four, and then the next one is the 8 or 9 that we did, we prioritized. So.
Actually, the big, yeah, you're right. The big four starts at number 2, except that the order would be, you would start with Georgia Avenue traffic calming, and then you'd start moving
That's
through.
not,
The Georgia Avenue traffic calming would be the one of the priorities that comes down there. You would also have stormwater improvements, and Tom Zeser has at least 2 projects for you all to consider for stormwater, but the first stormwater project will be brought to council here in this study session for consideration at the next council meeting. The downtown Greenway connector is also one of those projects. So 2 of those were stormwater projects. One was the Georgia Avenue traffic calming, and one was the stormwater projects, or correction, the Georgia Avenue. So road reconstruction, even though you've already partially funded road reconstruction based on Bluff Avenue, based on the guidance we got from the city council about Bolin Road, that would also follow as a road reconstruction project. And so that would move forward in the batting order as well. So our staff right now, based on the guidance we got from council at the offsite, is preparing cost estimates and actually getting hard codes, because my intention is to bring those as they become available for you all to consider. And so you have one staff action to approve or disapprove, and allow us to move forward here over the next probably 180 days to move forward. And I would say that you're likely to get actions to consider as a council for items number 2 through item number 10. 11 is questionable based on some of the information I'm going to wait to get back from Dominion Energy, but you're going to have several actions to consider simultaneously through those priorities.
I think, Pat, what was saying is, this list of 18 is what was passed in the referendum. And this 18 doesn't look exactly like what we've done at the offsite. We listed the big 4, which is 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we prioritize like Bolin Road and whatever. So that's how it's listed on here. So it may look different, but it's basically the same thing.
Because I thought like the activity center improvements, what, we had up to 8 sheets, right? Remember the
That's up
sheets?
there. That's up there.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
But I thought
That's part
activity center was 2
of
mean,
the 8.
of the 8.
We had the big 4, and then we had the list of 8. They were number 2,
All right.
which
Yeah.
is listed here at 6.
Yeah, and please tell me how that is. I'm
So
confused.
we had, the staff recommendation was that you had 4 projects, we called the big 4, that were,
Talked about those 4.
right, and that's Georgia Avenue traffic calming, there were 2 stormwater projects, and then there was the downtown Greenway connector money. And so ultimately, the staff recommendation was for those 4 projects to be the next priority projects. But then based on the funding amount that we had available in the rest of CPSD4, we laid out what we considered discretionary projects that should be funded,
8.
the 8 projects, and that's what you went around the room for to rank order those choices. So you start picking up those choices essentially at number 6.
Oh, yes, all right. So,
So what's throwing this is just the fact when we talk, in our mind, headquarters development already been done, but we
Done,
still
yeah.
have, because this is the referendum, it's going to show on.
yeah. So, and maybe you can't answer this, but when are we talking 4 years from now? Starting with number 6?
No, Councilwoman. What we're saying is I'm intending to bring an action to the council for each one of these listed projects all the way down to number 10
Okay.
through
This year, okay.
this summer, likely.
All right.
And part of the reason for the general public is that, we also didn't want to spend money we didn't have in our hand. So ultimately, there was some discretion that we took as far as the amount spent on public safety headquarters and other major projects, and we approached those projects in a one-at-a-time kind of serial manner. But we're getting very close to the end of our collection period for capital project sales tax 4. So now we're not talking about projections, we're talking about what's actually in the bank. And so the staff feels very comfortable to be able to come to the council with the recommendation to say, we can move forward on a number of these projects and actions for the council to consider, because that money is sitting there available for use, not projected funds we think might be here in a year or 2. So I think we're in a really good place to move forward on a lot of projects simultaneously here throughout the summer.
Yeah, I think that's the key, that we can do multiple projects like the community center improvements. That's not going to be a heavy lift. I mean, it's not like we're going to have to not
Yeah.
do anything until we do that. So I think it's great that we're going to be able to do multiple projects not layered, but
Now, refresh my memory on the Greenway connection downtown. That was the one that went you and come to East Clifton. Okay.
So in batting
West
order,
Clifton.
and you've already sent this to Aiken County, so they're aware of this.
they are. So I've sent this to elected officials and appointed officials in Aiken County because this is a county tax, not just we execute our portion of this county tax. But I've been in coordination and consultation with the county after the city council did their priorities in rank order and have not received any negative feedback. Just talked to Chairman Bunker today, as a matter of fact. And so as long as we're within and execute through Kelly's guidance as our city attorney that we do things through a legal way, that there was no objection from the county in this reprioritization. And so again, we do all of these things in a very public manner because these are public funds. And so you as the city council are going to make a determination about whether you want to reprioritize these funds or not. And that's the first vote that has to occur before we move forward on these other projects to move the ball on some of these. All right. Moving on to the next item, item number 10, Engineering and Public Works, resolution number 2026-18, Crestview Woodlawn drainage improvements. And I know that, and we'll consider that as part of the big four, Councilwoman Carpenter, of the big projects that we wanted to move on immediately. And so Tom has already gone out to done engineering work and has gone out to bid, and we have a low bid. That low bid actually came in on the day of the offsite. And so we are ready to move forward on that project. So again, that's one of those projects, by making a prioritization change, allows us to immediately move funding into stormwater projects, and we'd be able to move forward on this Crestview Woodlawn ditch. I know Tom Caesar showed you a number of pictures associated with that ditch. It is sits kind of in the Hammond Hills neighborhood. It's a ditch that is deteriorated. It runs along some fence lines in people's backyards. And we've had numerous complaints from citizens that live on both sides of that ditch about the runoff and the problems there. And so ultimately, that's one of those projects that was in CPST4, a named project within stormwater. There were 8 projects total in the stormwater line, and this is one of those projects. So this will allow us to move immediately on this. I would defer to Tom on start times of the projects and whatnot, but this would allow us to very quickly get out the gate and certainly see something moving. I would hope before Memorial Day, but I would defer to Tom on that. Any questions on that particular item? Okay, item number 11, and Chief may want to weigh in on this as well, since he was part of the drafting of this. So resolution number 2026-19, Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan. And so ultimately, my understanding is that we have a regional group that goes in and looks at hazards associated with natural disasters and ice storms or any number of other kinds of things. And so ultimately, by adopting a regional plan allows us to be able to be eligible for FEMA and SCEMD funding in the case of a natural disaster. And so obviously with our recent experience with Hurricane Helene, being able to be eligible for federal and or state funding from a disaster recovery perspective is critical. And so my understanding, and Chief can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, is that if we don't participate in a regional mitigation plan, that we may or may not be eligible for federal or state funding due to a natural disaster. So, Chief, I'll turn it over to you because I know you took part in those meetings and who's hosting all that.
So we're required to have a hazard mitigation plan, and 5 years ago in 2021, we adopted one through solely Aiken County. And this one here is done through the Lower Savannah Council of Governments, and it covers a wide range of disasters, natural disasters and technological disasters as well, so that it can cover it. And that's what we're wanting to get it approved so that we're eligible, so that we meet the qualifications for FEMA.
All right, moving on to our last item, under administration, resolution number 2026-20, authorizing funding allocation recommendations of the accommodations tax committee for the redistributed revenues from the accommodations tax year 2024-2025. And I would defer to Jamie on that particular topic as she has the most expertise.
Thank you, Mr. Clifford. Mayor and Council, this resolution is going to be a recommendation from the ATAX Advisory Committee for the redistribution of almost $41,000 that the council approved back from the committee at the February 2nd council meeting, Resolution 2608. The ATAX committee doesn't meet until Wednesday, this Wednesday, March 11th at 10 a.m. They're going to interview, review, and recommend the disbursement of funds for the 5 organizations that submitted, and then the resolution will come to you with your packet. And there
That'll
was,
be out in the packet on Friday.
yes, sir. So there was a recommendation, money to be distributed is right around 41,000, and the requests came in about 56.5.
And did they have the final say on that, or would we, even though you presented to us what they,
So
what they want to do with the 41,000,
correct.
what
So-
they say goes
No, it's a recommendation to council
council?
as to what amount that they will provide for each submittal. And then that will come to you along with a copy of those applications as
Well,
well.
we can say, no, we don't want that one.
I mean, that would be up to the
Well,
the
I mean, I know
council,
the
because it's a recommendation board.
Okay. So if there's any questions, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Jamie for department details.
All right, department details. First up is Finance Director Linda Williamson.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Just a quick update for our Cycle 1 customers. We will begin disconnections for their February outstanding balances beginning Tuesday, March 17th. Also, their March 10th bills are due on April 6th. Cycle 2 customers, we will have their February bills will be due on March 23rd, and disconnection for their February outstanding balances will begin Tuesday, April 14th. That's all I have for you tonight.
Now, things looking better down there with the water bills
Yes,
cooling down a little bit?
they're cooling down a little bit.
I think also Linda's coordinated to make sure that we're not doing shut-offs during Masters Week. So I know we got a lot of people that are renting their houses out are going to be out of town or any number of different scenarios. So we did not want to have disconnections happen during Masters.
Yes, we
But
did
you
get
know-
that settled today.
And I don't know how you put this in a nice manner, but people need to realize, even though we're not cutting off or we're not late fee, you still have to pay your water bill,
That's correct.
Okay.
But we now are doing late fees and disconnections, so
okay?
no longer be a surprise. Thanks.
Next up is Human Resources Manager Kayla Ferguson.
Evening, Mayor and Council. If you look on the back of your department details, you will see our list of employment opportunities. Bless you.
Thank you. Engineering and Public Works Director Tom Caesar.
Good evening. Just a quick update on the NRCS grant. We did award a contract several weeks ago, a partial contract for debris removal. The contractor has been underway. He's completed 4 of the 5 sites. They will be working at the Walnut Lane area in the vicinity of the boardwalk. That is probably the largest site with the most debris, so he will be there for at least 2 weeks, I'm sure. And then the remaining 2 contracts were on hold pending the outcome of a extension request that we made to NRCS, and we learned last week that that extension request had been approved. So we have a revised project completion date now of August 31st, which gives us, we believe, plenty of time to undertake and fulfill the requirements of our obligations under that grant. So as soon as we're wrapping up contract execution, both those contracts, and we will issue notice to proceed just as soon as we are able, hopefully within the next few days.
That's awesome. Great news, Tom. Thank you.
Next up is Public Services Director James Sutton. Sorry. Out of order.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This week, the city's utility contractors will be in town replacing 568 feet of corrugated metal pipe that runs between the Activity Center at Riverview Park over to River Oaks Drive. There will be some activity from the contractor at various times along the trail just to drop off a piece of equipment, and there will be some pump discharge pipe that's up near the trail but not on top of the trail. But they will be able to see some of the activity along the wood line. It's going to be a good project. Actually, it's going to conclude all of the interceptor pipe for the grant. It was initiated back a couple of years ago. This project's been ongoing since January 2025, and as soon as they finish, there'll be over 29,000 feet of the interceptor pipeline replaced. It runs along the river over to the east side of town onto Woomrath Road. We're looking forward to completing that project, and got a few manholes left, about 10 manholes to rehab, and about 16 manhole covers to conclude that entire project. So that's contractor's been doing a great job. In addition, utility crews will be working in extending our water service line. DOT's adding a turn lane up around Knob Cone and West Martintown. They will be out starting Tuesday until Friday, working on lane number 1. There will be temporary lane closure during hours of 8 a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m., again from Tuesday to Friday. And we do ask for people who will be traveling through the work zone to use caution, slow down, watch out for the equipment, watch out for the workers, and drive safe.
Will that be with the high school traffic's coming out? Do we need to not notify Mr. Rogers?
We can notify them, but we'll be on the,
Those kids coming out.
well, the work's gonna be above that on the eastern, upstream around the strawberry patch in front of there.
Oh, yeah.
So we won't be in,
Maybe
we won't be directly in the intersection, but we'll
Right,
be close
maybe
to
let
it.
him know so he can maybe announce
Yep,
this.
I'll have somebody contact him, sure
Thank you.
will.
Good job. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, next up is Planning Development Director Tommy Paradise.
The Planning Commission is going to meet next Wednesday week, March the 18th. And also, it's getting summertime, which is the busy time for code enforcement with tall grass and bushes. And as part of that, we redistributed, each code enforcement officer is assigned a district. And I've reallocated that to try to even out the workflow going forward. So if you're familiar with code enforcement work in a particular district, that may have changed. So just let you know. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tommy. Next up is Public Safety Chief Johnson.
Good evening. Some of you were there last week, but for those of you that weren't, we were able to unveil 2 historical markers at headquarters. If anybody has some time to learn the history of that property, feel free to come by and read those. Also, Public Safety is hosting a planning session of the Bridging the Divide Youth Justice Initiative Thursday evening, and this is being done in partnership with the NAACP Aiken Youth Council. And this Saturday, the CAT team will be participating in a Believe in Belvedere event.
Well, Junior, Chief Johnson, while you up here now, and Jim, somebody asked me, and I said, I'm sure, because Belvedere does not want to be annexed to the city, some of it. They said, well, can y'all annex the school so we can get a resource officer? Just the school itself. Is anything like that possible?
It has to be a contiguous property in order to annex it. You can't
But I
just
don't
pick a
know if
piece
it
out
is
and
or
get
not.
it.
Councilwoman, it's not. There are something actually we have looked at. There are 4 the minimum amount of parcels to get to Belvedere Elementary is at 4. And so ultimately there would have to be a voluntary option there. And so there are no current plans to annex Belvedere Elementary into the city right now.
But now, Sheriff Marty Sawyer, he said, Pat, I have not forgot you. Hopefully the first of the school year in July, we'll have a resource officer.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Park and Recreation Director Rick Meyer.
Good evening. The warmer temperatures have brought out the folks on the Greenway, and we're happy to announce that all the water fountains are in working condition on the Greenway. We actually replaced the one below the municipal center parking deck with a brand new fountain, and we have 3 more brand new fountains in stock, ready to go for wherever we need them. We'll add that the dog park, the doggy bowls are working, but the drink. Yeah. Yep. And we'll be working on around the parks to make sure all those, but we've got, yes. Well, you're a little bit ahead of us right now, but yeah, we're working on a project there. Yeah. Yeah, you're a little bit ahead of us. Yeah.
Rick, Pat's good at that.
Yeah.
Rick,
Yes.
well, piggybacking off of that, is that part of the maybe a sidewalk type there as well that we talked about
Um,
on the Miracle Field?
Yeah, how about a potential facility, shelter / water fountain / restroom maybe here in the future? Yep, working on that. This Kinder soccer, ages 4 and 5-year-olds, will begin play on Saturday, March 21st. All other spring sports, baseball, softball, and your other soccer leagues will begin on Monday, March 23rd. This week, Thursday through Sunday, the Activity Center will host the Nike YBL Scholastic Conference Tournament in Gym 3-4. Will not affect our members. It's a free event. Public can come and watch for free. And also, it won't be on your sheet, and oh, by the way, I put a link there to the schedule for you, but the Wrecking Crew begins their 2026 baseball season this Saturday on Miracle League Field #1. And last thing, and I won't steal the thunder, but we're awful, Parks and Recreation, awful proud of the alumni through our Parks and Rec basketball program, because most of the young people that played Saturday in the state championships come through. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you. And to conclude, department details is Tourism Manager Carl Waldhauer.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Our trolley program kicks back up this Friday. The trolley is going to run Fridays and Saturdays from 12 p.m. to 11 p.m. and third Thursdays from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. So it's a little bit extended hours this year. We had good success with it last year, and that's going to run through January 2nd. Chamber of Commerce is going to host the Good Morning North Augusta breakfast this Thursday at the Community Center. The program starts at 7:30, and the subject this month is workforce development. And lastly, Explore North Augusta is hosting our first concert of the year with Christian rock and country artist Rhett Walker on Friday, March 20th at 7:30 p.m. at the Sharon Jones Amphitheater. And Rhett's a local touring artist. We're lucky to grab him before he goes across the United States for the rest of the year. That's right. That's a wonderful program. Yes, ma'am. We're glad to be able to host stuff like that. Certainly.
You say about the app, about you got all the events listed for the year. Did you mention
A
about the
good,
app?
a good chunk of them, yes, sir.
Yeah.
We've released a good chunk of them. We have a couple more this spring. Tom Petty tribute band on Friday, May 15th.
That's gonna be big. You got a Journey one, Journey?
And Journey and Foreigner on May 30th, and we've got a couple others after the summer.
Billy Joel, Elton John?
Elton John, yes, sir. So we're excited to have all that out there. Have a good season.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll turn that, I'll turn that back over to you, Mr. Clifford.
All right, council, for our focus item tonight, sewer capacity annexation briefing. So Tommy Paradise will be the lead briefer on this. I would ask to allow him, we're seeking guidance. There's really two key questions that we're asking here that we'd like to get some guidance on from the council. We've given you at the end of this briefing, some recommendations, and so that's your kind of steering guidance. So if you would allow them to get through the briefing,
Hold all questions.
and then hold all questions to the end, and then we'll get kind of our amplifying questions and guidance at the end of the presentation. So Tommy, I turn it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Mr. Sutton and I is going to be tag teaming this one a little bit. What you see before you now is the current policy. This is section 2-6 out of the city code, or a portion of it. And basically it says, if we give you water or sewer or both, and you're contiguous, you have to annex into the city before you're given the services so that you build to city standards and develop to those standards. If you are not contiguous, you have to sign an annexation agreement so that when you are contiguous, you're annexed in. And that is pretty much what we have in place right now. Next. All right, from the municipal handbook, or from the Municipal Association handbook on annexation, the best interest of the municipality. Primary concern should be whether a proposed annexation would be in the best interest of the municipality and its residents. Next. City of North Augusta originally purchased a total of 8.672 million gallons a day capacity from the Horse Creek wastewater treatment plant over time. This was purchased back in the 80s and 70s. So out of that 8.672, we do a little math. We've got 6.136 that is currently permitted flow going into Horse Creek Valley that they've permitted. We've got 1.467 million gallons of permitted flow reserved for existing pipeline developments. It's what I call pipeline developments. It's things that we know are coming, that's in the planning phase, development phase, and as I say, they're in the pipeline. Now, what are those? The Hive, Alidade, Bluegrass, Chanticleer, Martintown Ridge, Hammond at 5 Notch. I think y'all took the roads last meeting, and Forest Bluff. And I'm sure there's others on that list that I could add to. So when you take that out of the system, because we want to, I think the policy is to look out for those that's already got in line. That leaves you 1.07 million gallons a day available for new projects. Next. So another little bit of math problem is the Department of Environmental Services, which DES is what we used to call part of DHEC. They require permitting capacity of 275 gallons per day for each dwelling unit, and the commercial and industrial capacity is based on the use. Well, what does that mean? Well, for a 400 unit subdivision, that would mean that you'd be allocating about 10% of the unallocated capacity that we have left. And 300 unit apartment complex would be about 7.5% of the unallocated capacity. So it's close. You could burn that capacity out real quick. So what's the best use of the remaining 1.07 million gallons a day capacity? Well, something that we would recommend to you is that You limit using that development, that capacity to certain developments. Is one, that development has to be inside the city. In other words, you don't use it to annex other places for the most part. To use it for infill development, your donut holes, or something that is already in the city that can be developed. And then commercial opportunities, and that's where you may use some of your reserves or unallocated capacity to help incentivize and bring that commercial into the city. Next. So, do we require out-of-city developments? You know, what do we do with them? Do we require them to purchase the additional capacity? And our recommendation would be yes, for residential anyway, because residential, you tend not to make your money back. And any questions?
If you can go back 2 slides, please. There you go. So the first piece of this is, from a council perspective, is, you know, do you agree with these recommendations? There are obviously there's other uses. You could use some of this 1.07 million gallons per day to offset annexation requirements. You could do a number of different things. But I think now, as Tommy's laid it out with James on what's really left for the sewer capacity, I still feel very comfortable in saying that I think we can handle the things that are in the city limits. But we are going to see some developments that have not yet come, but we think are coming, that are in the city limits. And so we definitely want to have some reserve capacity to be able to deal with that. And so I think if you take the developments that could potentially happen in the city limits that are not property we have to annex in, but things that are physically sitting in the city today, if you look at opportunities to fill in the donut holes, and we look at that mostly from a public safety perspective, and again, we're not talking about eminent domain, we're not talking about forcing people to be in the city, but if there's an opportunity, so like in the case of like Hammond Pond, that's not in the city, but it's a donut hole for us, and so as they come into the city, it's beneficial for us to have that from a public safety perspective, so the sheriff's department doesn't have to respond to something on the river. And then from a commercial perspective, there are certainly some potential options on the Jefferson Davis Highway, and as Tommy talked about, residential development does not pay for itself. Commercial does, though. Commercial actually is a net positive into the city's general fund, through business license tax. And so ultimately, if you have put a side by side comparison of 1 acre of commercial versus 1 acre of residential, you would have more money brought into the city through the commercial and less services required versus a residential plot, which would require more services and provide less funding. And so ultimately, when we look at that remaining just over 1 million gallons per day, this is a strategy that the city council could choose to pursue and say, okay, for these last 1 million gallons, this is where we want to prioritize those 1 million gallons, because we're going to have other folks that are going to come to us here, within this year of asking to do development that's going to be annexed in, or requests for annexations that are going to fall outside of this, and mostly residential. And my recommendation to you, along with the staff, is that we would not use that 1.07 million gallons per day for those purposes. That if we have new and exciting developments that are outside the city limits that are residential that want to come in, that we ought to fence this remaining 1.07 for what we have left in the city limits itself.
I think it's good for council to know the infill development piece, that is a top priority in our comprehensive plan. So that is, as you've mentioned a lot, Kevin, about that infill development. So I like it.
So I guess what we're looking for as a staff is, does the city council, and again, we're not putting a resolution in front of you right now. There's no, hey, you're on the dime to make a decision, but it would be helpful for us as we go through the parameters of dealing with various developments and various builders, that you either agree with all of this, agree with some of it, or agree with none of it, but we can at least take some of your feedback today from the dais and start to really kind of work our formal policies that we could potentially bring back to city council at a later date.
James, Tommy, or Jim, the infill development, the donut holes, are we saying we're going to not make people, but say, we want you in the city limits?
We're saying is that it's a cheaper cost for this 1.07 million gallons.
The other two I agree, but and I do agree with that, but go ahead.
it'll be cheaper to bring them in at a cheaper rate if they're in a donut hole space. If we say, if you as the council say, hey, if you want to annex in as a residential component, if it's outside the city limits and then it's kind of like a bump out, then they're going to have to pay for, Aiken County's, Horse Creek, capacity at a much higher rate. But this really comes down to is what do you as the council want to incentivize moving forward? And so if you want to incentivize infill development and filling donut holes, this would allow in a voluntary way, not a compulsory way, for people to enter into the city that are in the donut holes and operate at that rate. So they would still have to pay the tap fees. They would still have to do the things that everybody else has to do to come into the city. But at the same time, they're not going to have to go out and buy capacity from the county.
But this does not, with all the people that are using our water, but they're not city limits now. This does not.
If at some point in time they become contiguous to the city limits, they're required to annex in. But we're not going, this is a strategy to, because that's not infill development. That's expansion and annexation. We're talking about looking in from the city limits and looking inside and going, we have a lot of county property that we surround.
I think a great example is right up East Avenue, East Buena Vista, up the top of the hill. There was a couple big lots, I think maybe one old house that was in the county. Don Adams bought that, came to us to annex in. He's built 4 beautiful homes, upgraded the lifestyle of that area on that little block when you leave there. So that to me is a perfect example of we have we have a lot of donut holes like that. So it does make sense. That's a good example.
Yeah, and I think Jim covered it, but just so you're aware, it's still up to that property owner to request the annexation into the city. There's been a lot of attempts and talks about what they call enclave legislation, annexation, when you totally surround a piece of property, but that is not one of the procedures for annexation. It's still up, at this point, it would still be up to the property owner in that donut hole to say, I want to come into the city. And what Jim is talking about, by preserving some of this capacity that they don't have to buy, that they basically get from us, that's an incentive for them to come in.
But what if they don't want to, then?
Well, they just stay there.
Is there a recommended amount that we should keep in reservation from, say, state or federal guidance out of this 1.7 million gallons a day? Like, is there a reserve amount that we should just say, hey, I'm looking for like an invisible ceiling here, more or less.
Councilman, I think
we're allowed to go up to
there's no, we're watching other, counties or basically water authorities, people that have utilities, you run it right up to to all their capacity. I wouldn't recommend that as your administrator. I would say I would feel much more comfortable, if we got down to, I hate to pick an arbitrary number, but like $500,000 or $250,000 MGD, and the city council can certainly make that as a decision to say, hey, we're going to invest with you, the staff, the opportunity to take it down to this certain level as far as how much capacity is left. But then beyond that point, the city council wants to be involved directly about whether you're going to actually want to allow that capacity to go out the door or not.
Thank you. That's perfect. I'm going to say, as somebody who has spent a substantial amount of time in one of these donut holes, and it's not something that we can do anything about right now because of the structures that are there. I know it creates a burden on public safety. I know it creates a burden on code enforcement. Sometimes it's just hard to see when you have a person that is living in substandard limits. They're not getting the enforcement from the county because the county is so far away. If they were to send an enforcement officer all the way over behind the bingo parlor, it may take an hour, and then whatever they're going to enforce, that situation may no longer exist by the time they get there. So I like the infill development because it encourages places to upgrade their standards, and it gives us more of a watchful eye over those communities. But I would want to know what the recommended, what is the real number that we want to cap at going forward, and say, no, this is what we want to keep in reserve in case God knows what happens.
Jim, my only feedback is in general, at least, listening to the presentation and at first glance, I support these priorities for the remaining capacity. Don't really have any questions. I mean, again, I think it makes sense that we prioritize what's already in the city or what's already physically located within the boundaries of the city, for the excess capacity. As the mayor said, I've been pretty vocal and wanting to continue to prioritize infill development as much as we have the power to do so. So I think it, makes sense to continue to hold that capacity for that. And again, from a commercial standpoint, because of the return you get on that, which is so clearly positive compared to the negative return you get on residential, it would certainly make sense to continue to prioritize it for that. So, all that to say, I think again, just giving it kind of my initial thoughts here, that these priorities make sense.
I agree as well.
So on the, just for some clarification, the 1.467, that number included all of the developments that we toured.
That's correct.
Does that number also include the Kellogg tract or the Highland Springs tract?
It does include the Highland Springs tract, because that's also known as Aladade. That's gone through several name changes over time, but it does not include the Kellogg tract because the Kellogg tract is not in the city limits.
And then, just out of curiosity, as if we have new development outside the city limits that want to come in, what does that cost look like to the developers?
It's a high cost. The cost of buying in additional sewer capacity, and so, quite frankly, the cost is essentially the same. I don't want to say exactly the same, but it's essentially the same, because whether you get your water from the city of North Augusta, or you get it from Breezy Hill, or you get it from somewhere else, ultimately, or sewer capacity, I should say, ultimately that has to be collated there at the wastewater treatment facility, and they're, through the Aiken County Authority, is selling that at that rate. So you could shop it around, but at the end of the day, whether they connect to Breezy Hill or they connect to us or however that works out, but geography is essentially what drives those connections. And so some pieces of land, it's not going to make sense to bypass North Augusta and try to connect to a different authority because of the way that the geography is. They're not going to get that much of a better deal going to a different authority, because ultimately it's still going to go to Horse Creek.
So it's basically pay for sewer or do septic systems.
Correct.
Gentlemen, a question on commercial property that is currently vacant. So, for example, the Lidl store hasn't been functioning for a year or so, or the old Ryan store hasn't had a tenant there for 10 years. Is their capacity still part of the limit that we have?
So I would say, Councilman, that would file under the first bullet, which is development in city limits. So that's, we want to make sure that if you're already in the contiguous city limits of North Augusta, and you flip a building, you do something, you take something that had, a certain amount of capacity requirements, and it goes up a little bit because you build a bigger house, or you go from single family to multifamily, or you have a commercial use that went from one type of commercial use to a different type of commercial use. We want to make sure that we can service those requirements, and I would view that as development in the city limits.
I guess my question is that already committed space?
It is not. If that would go into that 1.07.
So once a building is vacant, or once a commercial space is vacant, their sewage capacity is removed from that list.
I would defer to James on, I think that's kind of a case-by-case basis.
Right now, the property you're speaking of.
Okay, so yeah, that is part of what we have committed. Okay. Yeah. And to echo the rest of the council, I would agree with these. This makes great sense as a service to our community and what's best for North Augusta.
Do we agree on the next page? Did we talk about that?
We can go to the next slide. Just so I think what I'm hearing from the council is there's some question about what's kind of that cut line before it goes into like, hey, we're not going to, or we need, some other council action to do that. But is broad consensus that those three items within the remaining 1.07 million gallons per day are the proper uses for those, that remaining capacity. And then the next question, Councilman Freed, to your point about the Kellogg tract, that's probably the next large development that will be coming to the city for consideration, and it's outside the city limits. It's in the county. It's behind, for those of you who aren't tracking where Kellogg tract is, it's directly behind Fire Station 3 on the west side of Interstate 520. It's a large piece of land. There's been some interest from a developer to do something there on the Kellogg tract, but again, they're talking about a large, residential development. And so the question that the staff has for the council before we enter into further negotiations with any developer about something outside the city limits is, hey, are we going to service them with our existing 1 million gallon per day, or are we going to go and tell them, hey, you got to go out there and go work with us on getting additional capacity from the county, at a higher rate? And our staff recommendation is, based on the growth patterns we have here, is if a residential development wants to come into the city for service purposes, that we would request that they purchase that additional capacity through us to the county.
So Jim, what would if we prioritize those three and we're saying we're going to keep the 1.07 MGDs for the three priorities that we've already made, what are the other options at that point? I mean, that's that either is there another option other than them buying additional capacity?
There is. I mean, you could always go if the city council said, hey, you know what, we like this idea of this development, the being in this location. You could go with a hybrid option and say, hey, you know what, we'll help defray, and like, let's say 200, just spitball and say, hey, you could say 200,000 gallons, a day could go out of the kind of the existing fund that we have or the bank, but then you'll still have to buy X amount of capacity from the county. That could be like a hybrid option, but I wouldn't recommend that. My recommendation would be, hey, if they want to come in badly enough, that they should pay for the upgraded sewer rates. Because otherwise we're going to take the cost of that annexation and try to spread that peanut butter across all citizens across the sewer rates, and I don't think that's going to be super popular to add in a new development. So I think that, hey, if a developer wants to come in, that's to us the staff recommendation, but there are other options. Again, there's a hybrid option, or you could just say, hey, the city could just opt to purchase additional capacity from the county, and then take that in either, I think other folks have used either bond funding or other financial mechanisms to get to those funds.
And I agree, and I wouldn't advocate for certainly not buying bonds even to purchase additional capacity for outside residential. So yeah, I mean, I guess that is an option, but certainly not one that I could see myself supporting.
Mr. Clifford, so if they buy the capacity, are those citizens in that new development, are they billed, their sewer rates are higher than what's in the current city limits?
No, Councilman. What their sewer rates would be the same, but it's the purchase of the capacity. So essentially what you'd have is a pass-through. If the developer has to pay, again, just picking random numbers, and they got to pay $1 million to get sewer capacity, they're going to take that cost and spread that across, the houses that they're developing in that development, and so that's going to bump up the price of the houses themselves. But the actual rate of what the sewer cost is, and James will correct me if I'm wrong, would be the same as any other residential component in the city of North Augusta.
Thank you.
Just want to review for public consumption, Mr. Clifford. So the rate we bought in at is kind of like almost 10 times less as the current rate.
That's a roughly, yes.
And do you ever see that rate coming back down going into the future for us to purchase in the future at a cheaper rate?
I do not.
Perfect answer. Thank you.
I've certainly heard questions from the council, but I haven't heard a consensus of, hey, if we had a residential development that came to us, would our strategy be to basically
Yes.
advise them to pass along those costs?
I think that's what we're saying, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I think we have enough to work with. You know, I think we'll have a future action that we'll bring to council for discussion. It won't be at the next council meeting because, again, we've got some homework to do on, cut lines and whatnot. But I did want to put this in front of the council. I know we have these, discussions kind of at a micro level where you'll have an annexation action that comes to you. But I really wanted to take a big step back for you as the council and just kind of show you what the staff considers as we go through these deliberations, but I wanted you to be able to set steering guidance for us as we do things here on the staff. And I think we at least have the guidance that we need today. So,
Well, and I think that is, just like the gentleman that came last week and spoke about that, this will maybe relieve people's minds also for us.
all right, gentlemen, that's it.
Great job, guys.
And,
Thank you. Good information.
Mr. Mayor, that's all I have from the staff for this evening for the study session. I turn it back to you.
I only got one thing. I just want to let everybody know, Downtown Merchants will have a Shamrock stroll from 10 to 5 downtown. Charlie will be running, so that'll be fun. And Pat, I'm going to let you be the one, in case everybody doesn't know, what happened on Saturday night in Columbia, South Carolina. Why don't you just shout it out for everybody?
History's been made. And I'm 75, and of course, I don't know, that high school's 1906 or something. But there's never been two sports, basketball, that girl-boy has won state. Never. And now boys almost made it last year, but they by a few points. Yeah. But this is such a honor for North Augusta and not only that, and some things you sent me. There's a young lady in North Augusta, Lydia Harris. She won state. She's a wrestler. She won state by herself. And it wasn't publicized that much for that child, but she went through the great North Augusta Elementary School, and it makes me so proud to see that. And I just want our young people to know this city is about young people. That's what we are. And that we're so happy that can you imagine 20 years from now, 30, 40, what's going to be in their heart? That's going to be a night they'll never forget long as they live. Now, I did talk, the mayor.
Lydia's information?
Yeah. Well, in our ROTC, they have outside. Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm talking to Casey tomorrow to give me a list. Because a lot of times, you hear football, baseball, basketball. There's so many other sports these children are doing. But and I know we can't do things through the city because, you get in a bind. But I've still got in my head, I'm going to do something, if it's me alone, but I know I have a lot of support in this city, that we're going to honor all of these young people that have stepped up to the bat. Wait a minute, not the bat, because that's baseball. Isn't it? Stepped up. But I just think our young people, people talk about all the time, these young people are horrible. They are not horrible. They're wonderful, wonderful. And it's our jobs as adults and Chief Johnson, I can't. This, what you're doing is sat with the NAACP. How wonderful. I want them to know we as adults love these children and young people. Okay?
Amen.
But just praise North Augusta High School.
Oh, we stand
We want to
adjourned.
keep it
Let's
one
go
high
right in.
school too.